Carolyn is my name, and I'm 46 years old. At the City Hall, I am employed as a municipal employee. I devoted myself to my work after earning my degree from a community college, and before I realized it, I had worked there for 25 years. I was 25 when I got married to Michael. It was a shotgun wedding, and the next year we had a kid. Our son is currently enrolled in college. He moved out on his own to live at a university in a different state. Since our son moved out, our marriage hasn't been the best, to be honest. We don't communicate much and our relationship has become even more distant, particularly since my husband's controlling behavior has gotten worse and brings back memories of our first marriage. After our baby was born, it appeared that he had put his inhibitions aside, but his actual self started to come out. For the elaborate dinners I cook, I've grown accustomed to receiving criticism along the lines of "this is bland" or "make it again." I hear this all the time. No matter how meticulously I clean or wash laundry, can't you even do household chores properly with an associate degree? And why did I even marry such a foolish woman? After completing his studies at a renowned private university, my spouse is employed in sales at a significant food trading corporation. With my associate's degree in government work, he undoubtedly believes that I am not good enough for him. He frequently says disparaging things. I expressed my reservations about splitting up domestic duties a few times, arguing that since we both work, can't we divide the housework? But he continues, "It's natural for the wife to do the housework, you get off work on time since it's a government job, and our son is grown up, so you should manage on your own." He sounded even more irritated by my response, "Our son being grown up applies to you too," and said, "If you can't handle both, quit your job." He tells me to give up easily, but I can't for various reasons. My salary primarily pays for our son's tuition, our mortgage, and our living expenditures. "Could you at least help with the mortgage or part of the tuition fees?" is a topic I've tried to bring up multiple times. But he said, "How I spend the money I earn is my business," and made the barest of contributions. Since the beginning of our marriage, we had maintained separate bank accounts, therefore I was forced to accept this arrangement. After 20 years, you would think that one would grow accustomed to a marriage like this, but lately, something has been bugging me. My spouse began to constantly beg money from me, making up different reasons. "There's a family gathering at my parents' home, so I need to give some pocket money to my nieces and nephews, so can you chip in about $100? That was the start of it. Family relationships are undoubtedly vital, but it seemed odd that he wouldn't help out personally. But I consented because I knew that if I refused, I would definitely be called a cold-hearted woman. However, my dad had injuries that day and needs to be hospitalized. It's awful. We ought to get together soon," I cried. "No need for a visit, but can you afford $400 for a consolation gift?" My hubby inquired. "Or it appears that a distant relative either on your mother's or father's side got married. Keep your distance. Prepare the about $300 I need for a congratulations present." Before I realized it, my spouse had stolen tens of thousands from me in addition to my usual bills. Despite my husband's persistent requests for money, I began to have mistrust towards him. I began to sidestep and avoid his requests. His attitude quickly deteriorated as a result, and he started venting to me once more. "Don't you even want to do something for your in-laws?" My husband would always be upset when he saw me. "Why do I have to put up with so much?" I thought I was going to cry at moments. I was also worried about my spouse being late home at around the same time. On certain occasions, he would return home smelling strongly of deodorant, and I discovered women's jewelry nestled in his shirt pocket. A fear was running through my head. "Coming home late, are you busy with work?" I was wondering. He would mockingly remark, "I have various obligations, like entertaining clients, unlike your cushy government job. You spend your entire day staring at a computer, right? Can't even tell if it qualifies as employment," he scoffed. There were moments when I responded by raising my voice. These arguments became more frequent between us. Why did he need to say such things, especially when I'm the one covering our monthly expenses? I missed our initial moments together. He was very sweet once. I can't even recall why I married him or what attracted me to him. Eventually, my uneasy instinct turned out to be accurate. My husband once observed, "You're home earlier than usual today," when he arrived home early. "I must discuss something with you." Confused, I said, "A talk?" It came to him suddenly, "Get out of this house." I questioned him, "Do you want to be with your lover?" since I thought he was cheating. "You catch on fast," was his reply, which validated my concerns. He said, "Women's intuition is truly frightening." The hostess of a snack bar that they frequently utilized for business entertainment was his sweetheart. A woman who was gorgeous and pleasant and good-natured, not like myself. She truly comprehends who I am. "We'll live here together because, it seems, she had a child from a former marriage," he revealed, giving me information I didn't want to hear. "Give me one night to think about it," I said to my spouse before locking myself in my room. His icy words, "Leave as soon as you can," struck me from behind. The money that was sucked out of me must have gone to his mistress after I was treated like an ATM and was now kicked out of the house. It's possible that he met his lover instead of arriving late under the pretense of business entertainment. Why must I always be the one to suffer like this? I pondered. I finally had enough of my husband's irrational indolence and decided to make a plan. "Are you done packing for the move?" was his snarky remark the following morning. Calmly enough, I said, "I'll be out today." He was taken aback by my upbeat attitude but expressed satisfaction, stating, "At last, I can get away from this boring life. Even if the house is simple, having a lovely woman is preferable than having one for sleeping purposes." "You're not very creative." "It's essential that I bring everything with me. Without it, we are unable to begin our new life," he remarked smugly. In we, he meant himself and his mistress. Before I could leave the house, I told him, I want a divorce. I didn't want to be the weak, easily betrayed wife who just up and left. I said to myself, I'll divorce this man myself. Envisioning a future with his mistress, I took out the divorce papers I had prepared for just this kind of situation. With no hesitation, my spouse signed the divorce papers and said, "Consider it done." I packed up my things and left the house that afternoon. My spouse said, "I feel liberated," loud enough to be heard at the door. His smug expression and cheerful disposition were fleeting. I told my coworkers what was going on, filed the divorce paperwork with the court, and took a few days off. I had not yet signed a contract on a new apartment because this was all so fast. I made the decision to remain at my son Alex's house for the time being. My son smiled a relieved greeting at me, so my face must have appeared pleasantly relieved after a long period. He questioned, "It's finally over, isn't it?" This is when the true test begins. "Mom, I support you." "I'm grateful." My retaliation came to an end. A recognizable number contacted a week later. It was definitely my husband, or, as it is now, my ex-husband. The calls were so insistent that I had to answer after initially ignoring them. When I finally picked up the phone, I was met with my ex-husband's furious tirade. "Hi. What are you doing, in your opinion?" It was the last day of the month, which meant that different bills were due today. "Are you referring to the payments for this month? You mean that we got divorced? Are we not? Why would I be required to pay anything at all?" That being said, my ex-husband's rage is not surprising. Neither the mortgage nor living expenditures had been deducted from my pay this month, and the total would have surprised me. Our flat was in a posh neighborhood, and the mortgage alone might run into the hundreds. How should I manage this amount? "Your wage," he said, sounding surprised. I choose to begin the explanation from the beginning. I didn't think it was necessary to explain because we were kind of apart inside the house. However, after receiving recognition for my accomplishments, I was elevated to the position of department head. Head of department, not head of section. How long ago was that? I believe that year was Alex's first year of high school. I make almost twice as much as you do. What? At every revelation, my ex-husband couldn't disguise his shock. Since Alex's birth, I have been investing for his schooling, but I too kept this a secret. 100,000 is the current value of the assets. It was incredibly helpful to have different bank accounts from the start. It kept me from finding out about the financial transactions. It's not possible, I said softly. I considered getting a divorce earlier, but I reasoned that there would be no benefit to you losing access to a handy ATM. Thus, I got my ex-husband to voluntarily consent to the divorce. I had deliberately acted the part of a submissive, faithful wife, offering him money to lead him on. I encouraged my son to go a university far from home and had informed him well in advance about the plan, which was to get a divorce. This was all intended to happen. When I finished explaining everything, my ex-husband became silent and was unable to respond. How does it feel to be countered by a wife you look down upon for being a community college graduate and working an easy government job? I think he never anticipated me to be that clear-headed. It seemed he could not respond. It's odd that he never asked how we were able to lead middle-class or higher lives. Since we are now divorced, of course, I am under no duty to make any payments going forward, even for this month. That residence is yours to keep if you so want. Isn't it your responsibility to pay the mortgage? You know, where are you now? After some difficulty, my ex-husband was able to answer. I even questioned your office, but they said you're on a few days off and didn't know where you are. Now, how am I meant to live? He mumbled under his breath, and rightly so. I had made plans with my son and my place of employment to vanish from my former husband's view. Naturally, I had also told my parents and other family members. My ex-husband seemed to be at a loss on what to do. I heard him gasp when I stated icily, "You could just earn your own living, though with your debts, you won't be able to live as lavish as before." How were you informed? A private detective could easily find out. My ex-husband had apparently been blowing most of his money on gaming. I had been paying the repayments of his debt with the money I got each month for living expenses. You're stupid for even showering your mistress with gifts. I'll give back the words you previously spoke to me. How could I have wedded someone so foolish? Once again, my ceaseless barrage of counts left my ex-husband dumbfounded. A long moment of stillness. I was wrong. Why can't you return? Abruptly, he queried in a quiet voice. I was completely mistaken. Give me your address, please, so I can apologize. He pretended to be sincere in his apology, hoping to make up for the fact that he still hadn't learned his lesson. I made the decision to tell my ex-husband 2 more truths. Have you checked the mailbox, by the way? How come this has just happened? I take it you haven't seen it yet? Alimony should be paid on a bill. I never expressed anything about an amicable divorce, even though my ex-husband might not be aware of this. Of course, I'm entitled to ask him for alimony. There's still one more item. Is there anything more present? Has his university not sent you a notice? What notification about the withdrawal of the tuition fee? How come? Yes, I had requested that my kid transfer my husband's name to the account used for tuition fee withdrawals. Soon, the tuition for the next semester will no longer be required. Hold on, let's have a calm conversation about this. I feel at ease as ever. It is a comfort in and of itself that he did not wind up attending the same esteemed private university as my ex-husband. Despite my ex-husband's disapproval, I worked hard and was able to enroll in a more reasonably priced national university out in the countryside. Even yet, the first semester's tuition alone costs thousands of dollars. Please make the transfer as quickly as possible because the alimony deadline is also drawing near. Please be kind to me. Why do you not put an end to this shameful behavior? I'm done hanging around with you. I hung up the phone after that. Later, I learned through the grapevine that my ex-husband was compelled to sell our apartment because he no longer had my backing. He's currently residing in a 50-year-old building in a rundown share house. My ex-husband desperately attempted to get in touch with me several times in an attempt to revive our relationship since he was in need of the money support. I don't know what kind of person his mistress was, but it probably says a lot about her character that he wasn't dependent on her. To make matters worse, I later discovered that my ex-husband was ultimately left all alone after his lover left him. I had the detective agency look into her too, and to my surprise, they found that, contrary to what my ex-husband had thought, she was childless. The only person who took the connection seriously was him. He was completely taken advantage of. I hope he thinks twice about what he did, after using me like an ATM and then throwing me out of the house. He went to his parents for assistance since he was drowning in debt from both his own personal expenses and the alimony he owed me. However, they were unable to overlook the appalling manner he had treated his wife, sent him away, and had his parents reject him. Now that he is lost, my ex-husband has no one to turn to. As for me, I'm finally hassle-free and living comfortably thanks to my investments assets and my ex-husband's alimony. I bought a brand new apartment. Alex visits on the weekends, and we have tea and study together. He wants to work as a public servant like me, which surprised me. I am really happy to see him putting a lot of effort into his studies for the National Civil Service exam. Taking my advice to heart, I've gone back to work and given thank you candies to my coworkers and supervisors for their assistance.